I'm Barbara Call, Senior Director of Content Strategy for CIO Marketing Services, and I'll be your host for today's video titled Accelerate Business Outcomes with Lifecycle Services, a conversation with IDC and Cisco customer experience, and brought to you by CIO, IDC, and Cisco. Today's conversation will focus on how Lifecycle Services can help enterprises accelerate business value for their IT investments. We'll start with an overview of Lifecycle Services, followed by highlights from a recent IDC research on imperatives for purchasing Lifecycle Services and the potential benefits. Then we'll wrap up with a look at the next trends in Lifecycle Services and what enterprises can expect to gain. I have two speakers joining me today. First up is Leslie Rosenberg, Research Vice President, Network Lifecycle and Infrastructure Services at IDC. And my second speaker is Alvio Barrios, Senior Vice President, Customer Experience Lifecycle Solutions at Cisco. And now I'll hand things over to Leslie to kick us off.
Thank you, Barbara, and it's a pleasure to be here. Alvio, it's nice to see you again. And let's start our conversation setting the stage with the definition, talking about how IDC views what lifecycle services are. So lifecycle services are an iterative process. It's a continuous cycle where it may start really at any point in the life cycle. We look at it in three core stages: plan, build, and run manage. In the plan stage, we bring together key stakeholders across the business, technology, and operational executives, where there's strategic conversations around what business imperatives and objectives will be, and then the underlying architecture is designed from there. In that stage, you have the opportunity to align network infrastructure to business priorities. And again, expertly designing, building, integrating, and transforming the network infrastructure in alignment with these business imperatives. Next, also included in that planning conversation are future thinking about how you're going to support these environments or manage these environments across the full life cycle of these assets. Moving into the build phase, organizations will want to continuously ensure that they're utilizing the technologies appropriately, there's optimization of the infrastructure, and that there's continuous adoption and exploration of these new investments in the network architecture. And last, as you're moving through the build phase, is really taking an understanding in terms of how to really optimize and differentiate through IT innovation and the delivery of services to the business. Now, through these conversations, many enterprises may understand that they may not have the right skills, the amount of people and resources to effectively run and manage these environments. And so as part of that conversation, there's the exploration if an enterprise might use managed services or they have the ability to run it themselves. Now, it doesn't end right there. There's a continuous conversation as there's a realignment and reestablishment of business imperatives or technology imperatives, such as who could have discovered that we'd be in a pandemic? And there we have to have a whole new discussion about what that network infrastructure needs to be. And again, going through that cycle again to realign the business and realign the network architecture to support whatever these business imperatives will be. So enterprise customers enter this conversation at various points throughout the life cycle, and it's not always smooth. And in some cases, enterprises need help. And so they'll turn to a third party at various points throughout the life cycle to help accelerate or guide them from one stage to the next. So I have a question for Alvio. Where does Cisco see its customers have the greatest internal capability, and where do they need to leverage expertise along their journey? So in other words, where do they get stuck most often?
Thank you, Leslie. Interesting question, because in our experience, our customers really understand the business outcomes they want to get out of an investment in technology or solutions. And with software-defined networks, as they implement a lot more networks, what we find is that they're not getting the most value out of those investments. So when we think of customer experience and lifecycle, number one, we're thinking about value. Are they getting the value of what they actually bought or procure? And are those actually meeting their business objectives? And number two is actually about the experience they're having with those solutions or those technologies that they're deploying. And then it comes in the complexity level. Software-defined network is supposed to make things easier. But the fact is that our customers may have very complex networks with multiple technologies, multiple vendors. And I think it is important for them to understand how to maximize the value of that technology in a way that is a lot easier to consume, and they can focus on driving the business outcomes. So I think, all of these things are a lot more complex than they seem. For instance, hybrid work is a good example. We think of hybrid work as collaboration tools, but then you also have to take into consideration the networking, the underlying network that enables that, and the latency and the experience that it has, that collaboration application as an example. And then security. Is it secure enough to do all of those? So they may get stuck in different levels where they may not have all the resources or the expertise level. And that's where we come in. And through our digital capabilities, we're continuously helping the customer move along the journey with freedom, where they can self-consume the capabilities, or they can actually get engaged with our experts to help them along the way. So I think it's different for every customer, depending on where they are in their journey and what capabilities they have and how much complexity they have in their network. But the most interesting part is our customers know what they want to get out of the network. Our job as a Cisco is to help them get there faster.
I absolutely agree. And to that point, we conducted some research just this fall in collaboration with Cisco, where we queried over 300 Americas-based IT enterprise organizations. And we asked them really what was motivating them to purchase Lifecycle Services. And they told us that the main business and technology drivers for purchasing these services really help them solve a variety of complex IT issues. But what really jumped out in terms of the top drivers was their ability to secure their environment. Again, when they're adopting new technologies, they want to make sure that they're not exposing the infrastructure to any potential risks. And the second was the ability to gain faster access to new technology capabilities faster. So again, just to your point that you mentioned earlier, really how to maximize the investments that they're making. And then this was closely followed by their ability to extract, as you were saying, extract maximum value from these investments, really to help accelerate the business. So Alvio, are these similar drivers to what you're hearing in your customer conversations?
Absolutely. I think security is top of mind for everyone, especially as most of the applications are distributed. So that's top of mind. And that starts with visibility. How do we give our customers visibility to their entire landscape, their entire surface, so that they can know where they're exposed or not? And the second part of it is applications, and what is the experience of those applications, and how do they interact with the networking layer and the security layer. So by understanding those things, we can actually correlate events, and we can say, okay, the experience of your users or your enterprise in Asia and Singapore may not be the same as New York. And what are we seeing there? Is that a service provider issue? Is that a network issue? Is that a security issue that we need to address? So I think it starts with visibility. How do we give a customer total visibility? The second thing that we have approached differently is we think of everything now as platforms. And by creating a platform, that means that you can actually deploy technologies much faster, because you already have a common layer of control, of management, of telemetry that is there. So it's much easier to deploy newer technologies with a faster ramp up. And in a way, simplifying what seems to be very complex implementations. All of this with the objective of integrating applications, integrating networks, and making sure that the customer experience ultimately is improved. And this is all about experience. Lifecycle is about value and experience. What we have done at Cisco, as an example, we have built a customer experience platform, because first thing we need is telemetry from our customers. We combine that with the expertise that we have of having deployed more than 4,000 complex networks, been managing networks for more than 18 years. So all of that intellectual capital we use as AI and ML to actually apply to the telemetry and the insights that we have of those networks, and then give it back to our customers through a digital journey or a digital experience, but actually sharing with them visibility, insights, recommendations. So really changing the whole experience from reactive, which is you call us when you have a problem, to actually lifecycle services and accompany you in your journey with those, everything starts with data. So we need the telemetry. But based on the telemetry, then we applied all the knowledge, all the intellectual capital to AI and ML, and that allows us to be a lot more proactive and actually provide guidance to our customers, whether we do it through a digital journey or we do it through an expert. And we combine those two things quite well, to the point that now CX Cloud is the single pane of glass for all of Cisco technologies. So if you're a customer, you can go to CX Cloud, you can see all of your assets, all of your landscape with Cisco, and you can see where you have vulnerabilities, where you have P-certs or security alerts, recommendation on software upgrades, or the best software to run in your enterprise. So again, preventing exposure, improving experience, and helping you get there faster to value. And then provided contextual learning at that specific point on that journey where you may be. So let's say you bought a solution and you're in the stage of implementing. You're not yet at the stage of using or optimizing and then eventually adopting the technology at scale. You probably have 10% adoption of your users. We'll give you digital assets and best practices to say, hey, here's how we think we could move you along faster. And by doing those things, we're accomplishing a couple of things. We're getting you there faster time to value. We're helping you secure your enterprise in a lot easier way. And then hopefully you get to use the technology you paid for it in a more efficient way.
That's very in-depth. And Cisco is taking a very methodical approach to helping customers empower themselves, really to make the right decisions at the right time, because they have the information that they need to make informed decisions. So it's really actionable insight, if you will. So it's extremely helpful. So as part of this research study, we asked these same enterprises that purchased these lifecycle services about the benefits that they realized and that they called out as their top business and technology drivers. So they told us that 55% of them saw improved IT security, which would make sense. Again, they want to ensure that they're not exposing the infrastructure to any unintended risk. That they had faster adoption of their new technologies, 39%, I think, which is really impressive. And then there were two other very interesting statistics. One is that 39% said that they achieved faster IT ROI. Again, they had the ability to tap into resources, maximize the investment faster, because again, having access to expert resources help them achieve these ROI benefits. And the last stat, which I think is exceptionally interesting, is that 45% said that they saw productivity gains. And what that means is that they weren't ferreting around for information. They all had the information housed in one location. It was contextual. They could access it quickly, either through a variety of digital and human resources. And again, that saved significant amount of time and increased their time to productivity. So that said, so Alvio, can you talk about some of the how your customers are experiencing these benefits, and then maybe talk about in further detail about productivity gains?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing we're talking about the same set of customers. Our data points should match. But yeah, we're seeing actually 39% faster time to value and gains in productivity, of course, because you're spending less time solving issues. So, but it's better probably to talk about a couple of examples. We have one of our customers in an IT environment that, by leveraging, again, the combination of the digital platform plus our expertise, this customer experienced a 56% reduction in security alerts by having greater visibility to their environment and where they had, again, all software that was vulnerable or threats, et cetera. We have another customer, this one in healthcare, where basically, continuity is critical in healthcare, as we know, and hopefully that'll be the case if we're ever needed. But this customer basically reduced the time that it takes to investigate any security advisory from 20 minutes to about 5 minutes by having this visibility, so that they can look at their entire landscape. So those are just a couple of examples where you see, again, how they can secure their environment much faster, and how by doing those things and spending less time chasing where the issue is going to be, they can actually drive more productivity. So I think you talked about productivity. Those are great examples on how the customers can get to that 55% better productivities by spending less time. in functions that are repetitive or that it takes a lot of time for them to investigate, like having visibility to all of the vulnerabilities in the network, having visibility to all the assets, and then a set of recommendations on how to address those.
Yeah, I mean, just the idea of not having to, toggle to find that right bit of information that you need, or make a couple of unnecessary phone calls when you have it all housed in one location. Again, the productivity gains are paramount. So that's really impressive. That the research is showing 45% productivity gains. It's impressive. So I'm going to double click actually on another data bite from this research in terms of how enterprises achieve these outcomes, and then specifically what services that they use to get there. So the respondents stated that Lifecycle Services help them achieve specific business and technology outcomes, including helping to demonstrate ROI and TCO. And you just gave a great example in terms of productivity. But they also leveraged training and education resources more quickly, again, a productivity gain, to allow them to adopt these new technologies faster and thereby realizing the value of their technology investments faster. So can you further that topic and talk about some of the additional investments that Cisco is making around customer success?
Absolutely. First of all, I think it's a good balance, a good combination between digital and expertise. At Cisco, since we've been in this journey, we have more than 1,000 resources dedicated to lifecycle services or customer success. And on top of that, we've built platforms, example, the customer experience cloud, CX cloud, as we call it, and also the partner experience cloud. And these digital platforms, again, allows us to scale and allows us to provide a lot more insights and just-in-time assets for this, for our customers and our partners to actually take advantage of it. So this is an example. If we see that you're deploying a specific technology, and it could be a zero trust environment where you're deploying multiple technologies, and we see that you're either struggling with endpoint detection as an example, or segmentation, we can actually make available specific assets that, whether is, again, best practices, FAQs, connected with a community, or ultimately just engage with an expert on how do we help you move from where you are and how to get segmentation going for your zero trust environment. So the digital platform actually allows us to have better visibility, provide contextual learning and assets just in time when you need them, so that you can move along that journey, and always give you the option to talk to a professional, to talk to an expert. And we can either do that in a one-on-one session, which we call accelerators, or ask the expert sessions, which we coordinate webinars or sessions for multiple customers that are probably in the same stage of that journey. And the way we maximize the value is the way we structure our content is based on every solution has a set of use cases. So that's how we guarantee that we're talking the same language that the customer is talking when we're talking about a specific use case. And where you are in that journey to implement that use case, typically that use case solving a problem and is driving a business outcome. So that is the atomic level that we use in this digital platform, is use cases aligned to solutions. I remember that I mentioned originally that by moving this combination of digital, the approach to life cycle, what we started to see our customers is utilizing a lot more of the capabilities that they were getting, specifically when we talk about software-defined networks or controllers and those type of applications. We've seen basically a 2x usability of the solution in terms of the features and the capabilities. And that's really what we try to do with our customers, is how do we uncover that all of those capabilities and capacity so that they can get to their value much faster. So the other thing that we're doing as well, and I mentioned briefly Partner Experience Cloud, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next section, is how do we make sure that all these insights, all this intellectual capital that we have, we're also sharing through APIs, open APIs that are available through this digital platform, so that they can add the same value to the customers that they're working with, and that they can actually even develop their managed services practices to leverage all of those digital assets. So the digital is really what changes the game. We can definitely invest a lot more in professional resources, but the digital is what gives you the platform for us, and for our customers to have a different experience and a different value proposition. So yes, we continue to invest on our customer experience cloud. We continue to invest in all platforms, and our objective is to deliver all of our solutions through platforms.
So I'm wildly impressed by the amount of investments that Cisco has made and continues to make. And what I think is interesting and valuable for enterprise customers is that right balance between digital and human. Because at the end of the day, we're humans and we like to engage with people, and sometimes it's very, very necessary. But having these resources at your fingertips, it allows the conversation when you do need to engage with an expert is at a much more sophisticated level. You're kind of solving bigger, more challenging problems because a lot of these repeatable issues and challenges have been solved either through automation or digital assets and digital resources. So again, increasing productivity gains, raising the bar in terms of skill, filling gaps, and helping customers realize value that much faster. So that said, I'd like to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in the market today and then what that future view is, because at IDC, that's what we do. We analyze the future. So what we do see in the market today in terms of current offerings are, and many of these that you touched on, and Cisco, in my opinion, really has been a driver in terms of bringing these to be table stakes in the market. And that includes near real-time visibility and analytics through telemetry, again, and coupled with AI and ML capabilities to provide actionable insights that are back to customers. But again, having that visibility also allows for performance and health status, either predictive or proactive alerts and security, vulnerability information, really across networks and devices. So I think that's become table stakes in the market today, along with things such as patches and updates, advisories, contract status, last day of support, et cetera, last day of license, et cetera, continuous reporting, and then channels for communication. So this is kind of where we see current offerings today. And I think it's really important for enterprise customers that if your partner or or your vendor community isn't offering these, it's really important that they do, because this is table stakes today. But then moving forward in the future, where do we see the market going? And we're beginning to see examples of this happening. And actually, Alvio, you talked about some of them in terms of the investments that Cisco is making, specifically around contextual content. And this is, again, it's designed and aligned with the assets that are currently deployed and coupled with use cases. And you talked about use cases, which I thought was really interesting, in the ability to put it in context. So it's not just a ton of information. It's information that's relevant, information that's actionable and use case driven. Again, leveraging AI and ML, and again, having observability across the full estate. But you also mentioned, I'm going to go back to actually current offerings and ask you a question. So you mentioned about real-time visibility and predictive and proactive insights. Can you elaborate a little bit more in terms of how Cisco does that?
Yeah, of course. Our whole journey to customer experience has been from, reactive to proactive to preemptive. That's the whole journey. And in all the stages, by the way, we leverage AI and ML in all of those cases. But I'll give you an example on current use cases for AI and ML. We have deployed automated diagnostics and analytics. And by doing that, when a customer, as an example, opens a service request for support, we can actually reduce the time in terms of diagnosis, automated testing and analysis from hours. We're talking about 5 hours to a couple of minutes before we hand it off to one of our experts to help that customer solve their problem. So we have taken out that piece of time. That gives our customer faster time to resolution, as an example. We have another example where we used automated fault management, which we see a fault in the network and we automatically diagnose the issue, test it, and provide a recommendation for somebody to execute on. And this is a service provider with more than 20 million subscribers. And by using automated fault management, they were able to save about $8 million just because of their mean time to resolution and how fast they can get there. So this is just a couple of examples on how we're using AI and ML, even on the, let's say, the traditional support model. Then you move to what you said, visibility. And those are current offers that are out there in market. But just having visibility allows you to address many issues. Our customers have a lot of assets that have been in the network for a long time. Basically, at their end of life of support. That is a big problem when you talk about security, because you have assets that definitely are not compliant with the software version or the capabilities that you need to be able to protect your environment. That is an exposure. You have customers that have issue with HIPAA compliance. And again, having the visibility to those will help secure that environment or that compliance in the specific industry. So that's just on the visibility side. I think as we move more to the predictive and the preemptive, then that's where automation comes in. And that is combining, again, all the insights, all the telemetry, all the AI and ML, and then actually automating processes and automating recommendations to help really change the game for our customers. Recently, we announced, for instance, intelligent RMA, which is predominantly just intelligent replacement of parts. What's the intelligent part? Well, the intelligent part is that we can pretty much, given certain thresholds and metrics that we have, and knowledge and intellectual capital, we can predict when we have component issues in the network, when they're exceeding a certain memory capacity, or we're seeing a behavior that we saw in another network that led to a specific issue. And we can automatically start the process of requesting a replacement part for that customer. So by the time we engage the customer, it's pretty much, hey, we've identified this issue. This is a potential exposure for you. We've initiated the process, approve or disapprove. And if you approve, then you're going to solve the problem proactively versus waiting for the device or the component or the system to fail. All of those things are fundamental. So that customer that is experiencing, whether it's a WebEx application in meetings or whatever, doesn't see any impact on their network. So all of that leads to customer experience, to value realization for our customers. The latest thing, or the next thing that we're working on is, and I mentioned it briefly, is APIs, which is how do we start actually utilizing this platform, engaging it with, if you want to call it, business controllers, services controllers, like ServiceNow as an example. And you can start now using all of that intelligence in today's environment, still with a human or an expert supervising it and making the final call, but actually start connecting through APIs, all of that intelligence, all of the, here's the analytics, now we've diagnosed, we've tested, here's what we suggest, recommendation for execution that goes into your other business processes, and for you to push that button and basically execute on. So that's really giving our customers an incredible amount of time back to do other things and innovate on what they really want, which is their business outcomes, and not necessarily on technologies that are enabling the outcomes. So that's just an example of the work that's going there. And I think, our philosophy is everything that we have on this digital platform, through a different set of APIs, we're going to make that available to our partners as well, to the extended ecosystem, because, more than 80% of our business goes through partners. So how do we enable those capabilities so that they can also create their managed services? They can also add that the incremental intellectual capital that they have, especially in multi-vendor environments, and they can deliver that to the customer. So it's more of how do we continue to evolve into automation with those platforms? How do we open up the capabilities to create an ecosystem where customers can actually have the freedom of choice, get some time back, and basically, can use that time to drive their business growth, which is ultimately what most of our customers want to do. So those are just a couple of examples. Always having a good balance between what digital gives you and what professional expertise brings to the table. So we always look at the combination of human and I guess we call it computer, but it's human and digital, and how do those intersect to maximize the value for our customer.
Yep. I couldn't agree with you more. You had some really great points there, specifically around automation. You know, we'll continue to see kind of redundant manual processes be automated. We'll see more intelligence and automation built into the devices and systems themselves. You know, just as you talked about for kind of self-healing, faster configuration, removing security risks and vulnerabilities, and really help drive efficiency and productivity in IT teams. And I really like the point about, and we agree with you in terms of open APIs, because it takes a village, if you will. And as these systems and networks become more complex, having open APIs to allow ecosystem and channel partners to drive innovation only benefits your customers. It allows them to do more innovative things when they see that their partner ecosystem can be part of that discussion and those resources are available to them. In terms of the what we're also seeing is the development of a really interesting resource libraries that, you know, for self-service learning. So no longer are the days where you kind of went to a facility and did your training and certification. Now those things can be done online or using webinars like we're doing today, or even blogs or simple blueprints really helps, again, driving efficiencies and productivity. But that opens it up again for driving communities for best practices and knowledge sharing, which I think we'll see a lot more of moving forward as we look at, you know, what happens in the open source community, as an example. But again, having these resources digitally and at your fingertips and self-service really helps solve problems in the moment. But just as you said, Alvio, we're humans and we need to interact with other experts and humans to really solve problems and innovate. And having live access to these resources, either you know, in a multimodal channel or scheduled visits. Again, we've been quite isolated these last 2 years, and I think many teams would welcome a visit from their expert resource on site if possible. Again, to help them think through problems and innovate a lot faster. And I think moving forward, we will continue to see new ways of thinking about lifecycle services. And when I say lifecycle services, it's not only just about the software or about the hardware or the project. It's a bigger story, if you will, and that encompasses customer experience and how customers are engaging with their products and solutions and continuously innovating and driving forward new IT experiences.
I think life cycle it's as much, you know, when we talk about you know, leveraging digital and everything else, is almost like a culture, and it's how do we develop solutions with life cycle and in the back of our minds, and how is the customer or the enterprise going to consume that and utilize it to the entire life cycle. And you know, whether it's in the planning stages, the building or running and managing the business, and ultimately driving that experience, that value realization. And that's how we're approaching it. Everything we think about is life cycle. Do we simplify it through a platform? You know, how is this customer going to consume this in their environment, the plan, the implement, the usability, the richness of the content, and the contextual part of it, which is the learning as you need it. And to your point, I mean, Cisco has been in, and I think everybody knows this because of the Cisco certifications, but we've been in learning for a long time and actually probably set the benchmark in the networking industry. We're transforming that whole business to, again, a digital plus human experience, which means is we'll have learning path. We provide learnings as the customer needs it in that specific use case or that specific engagement. So it's just in time content so that they can have a big impact versus getting a lot of certifications that you're not really sure how you're going to use them in that specific point. So by having that capability, we're actually really, upskilling, reskilling, not only our own teams, but our customer teams as well, with the right knowledge, the right content at the right time. And that is all enabled through digital. I mean, digital gives us the scale. When we're talking about digitals, we're thinking, for our customers, when we deliver and offer a solution, what is the digital journey so that the customer can consume those that contextual data and information as they need it in that journey. And it's not that we're going to let you lose on the digital journey. We're going to put you on digital journey, and we're going to actually support that with our experts as needed. So it's a combination of the two. I think it's exciting times. It's exciting times for everyone. And with all the business challenges out there and our customers figuring out how to do things at more scale to drive the business outcome, I think everything is about life cycle. And I think when we started, you talked about this is an iterative process. This is not that's why it's called life cycle. I guess it's 360. You go back at it again. Exactly. So we're really excited about what we are and what we have to share with our customers and partners through our digital platforms, and how we're approaching life cycle, customer success, and ultimately it's about value and experience. And that's our focus as a business and as a company.
I'm excited just to continue to speak with enterprise customers and see how they're adopting these practices within their own organizations and how much faster they can move and the outcomes that they can achieve. So, and hearing how they utilize these resources that are at their fingertips. So that's going to be exciting to continue to study in the market. So.
We're in the early days, so there's a lot of runway for us to get this right at scale. So, but we're looking forward to the challenge.
Right. And also, you talked about your partners, and we're seeing a big transformation in the partner community as they move from product resale to, leading with services and now adopting lifecycle practices into their own business models, and really how, they're reaching out to partners like Cisco to augment services that they may not have. And so it allows them to bring a richer experience to their customers and drive higher levels of satisfaction, not only with the experience with your partner, but experience with Cisco products. So I think that's going to be an interesting journey to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you caught on to this, but when I talked about the customer experience cloud, I also talked about a partner experience cloud. Right. So they're actually linked. And that's the main reason. I think our partners do an incredible job for us and for our customers, and we have to enable them through APIs and, again, automation and a lot of the capabilities that we're developing. So we're really excited about, again, their evolution as well as ours.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing all that detail. There's a lot of richness there for our enterprises and partners to explore. So thank you very much, Alvio.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity and for the insights as well.
All right. Thank you. That was great. Thank you to both my speakers, Leslie Rosenberg of IDC and Alvio Barrios of Cisco. And thanks to you, our audience, for joining us. For more information on this topic, please visit the resources section on your console. For CIO, IDC, and Cisco, I'm Barbara Call.